When I became atheist, I tooted the horn of I have reason, I have logic, I have science backing up my beliefs. And being religious means the complete opposite of that. Little did I know that much of my beliefs were actually the opposite of reason, logic, and science. And I believe that these three things that I'm about to talk about, had I known them at the time, I would never have become atheist. That which is cannot come from that which is not. Or, in other words, something cannot come from nothing. It is impossible. In order for something to exist in this world, something has had to put it into existence. But the science, you say. Yes, science has proven that there is a beginning to the universe. That science has proven. But science has not proven what brought it, what caused it into existence. It explains how with the Big Bang, right? But it doesn't explain how the Big Bang was started, like how a dynamite blows up. You need someone to light the fire. Many atheists might argue ex nihilo, it came into existence by itself. This, logically speaking, is not possible. Ex nihilo cannot happen. One way to think about it is like, for example, you are here because of your parents, and they're here because of their parents, and so on and so forth. Someone had to have existed before you could exist. But if you say God created us, then who created God? Well, this question actually brings us back to square one. You cannot have an infinite regression. You can't keep going and going and going. Continuous regression cannot go on for anything to exist. It would be impossible for anything to exist. So you and I are contingent beings. Something had to exist before us. We're reliant on something else to have existed before we could come here. And we don't have to be here in order for everything else to exist, but there must be a necessary being, something that has always existed, a being that isn't reliant on any other being, a being that is existence itself. Take, for example, I use this in one of my other videos, a wagon, right? A wagon on a train track. This wagon is being pulled by another wagon, and another wagon and another wagon and so on and so forth. But in order for these wagons to actually move, you have to have the locomotive. There's the train. There's the train. Thank you for making my point. So in order for the wagons to actually, for the first wagon to pull the 1 millionth wagon at the end, something has to pull that wagon, and that is the locomotive. And the locomotive is independent from everything else. It moves on its own. It is reliant on itself. It is the source of all movement, the first mover, if that helps you visually. So there has to be an initial catalyst, something that starts it all, because everything has to have come from something. And in order for something to happen or to be, you need something to have existed before it. So as the locomotive is to the wagons, so is God to all of us, to everything in the universe. Wait. Why do you have to call it God? Well, I'm going to let G.K. Chesterton explain. It is really far more logical to start by saying, in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Even if you only mean, in the beginning, some unthinkable power began some unthinkable process. For God is by its nature a name of mystery. My next point kind of ties with the first one, and that is chaos begets chaos, and intelligence begets purpose. My son is 2, and about a month ago, he got into drawing for toddlers, just like scribbling and, on paper. And I'm looking around because usually there's paper on the floor. And in the beginning, it was just lines, random lines. He didn't have much control. But after a while, we started to notice in this past week, he's starting to try to draw circles. And you might say, well, look, evolution. Well, no, he has a purpose, and that purpose was already there. Even though he wasn't able to execute it in the beginning, the final image, his end purpose was already there. I'm going to take this paper and I'm going to make a circle. Intelligence begets purpose. In order for something to have a purpose, someone has to have thought of this purpose. Half of all bacteria known to man are motile. That means they move. And get this, these things can move at about 100 times their body length in a second. In a second. That is so fast. No wonder they can infect you so quickly. And this amazing thing is called the bacterial flagellum motor. This thing, this amazing machine, is made up of 40 different types of protein, and you take out one of the protein parts and the motor cannot function. All parts are necessary. Evolution by natural selection is very flawed, and let me just explain. Let's say I'm going to evolve to be able to fly. Well, in order for me to select a trait, that trait has to have already existed. Natural selection requires things to choose from. It's like, for example, you go to McDonald's or something and you want like everything on your burger, extra bacon, extra sauce, etc., but on the menu, those things that you get to choose from in order for you to have the most amazing burger ever existed. Although I don't know if it would come from McDonald's. My point is, those things that you want on that amazing, the most amazing burger has to have existed already. It cannot evolve into existence. I don't think I got my point across, so here it is in simpler terms. In order to be able to select abilities for a functional purpose, that means you have intelligence. Evolution by natural selection. We have that word selection. To be able to select means you can choose, and you need intelligence to be able to choose. And if you can choose, that means the things that you are choosing exist. The ability to choose, to select, necessitates intelligence. And in order to select that ability or trait, it has to exist already. So for example, for bacteria to be able to move, to evolve to move, that means it has figured out that there is a functional advantage. It has to know what movement is, and it would have to know what it requires to be able to move and to put those things together so that it could work. The bacterial flagellum motor, this amazing piece of nanotechnology, could not have evolved into existence piece by piece, because without all of its parts, rotary, propeller, stator, etc., it would not work. Remove one part and it cannot work, and it could not exist. Every part is essential, and not only that, it requires a certain number of each part, and also the sequence of assembly for it to actually to be able to work. There is a certain sequence for construction that if you, let's say you start with step number 5 instead of step number 1, it would not work. It would not function. So intelligence is required for selection, and traits and abilities have to exist in order for you to be able to choose. Christopher Hitchens talked about this light-sensitive cells that eventually evolved into the complex eye. Well, those light-sensitive cells had to have been there already. An eye is an eye is an eye, regardless whether it can see well or not at all. But if its function is to see, it is an eye. Chaos begets chaos. Intelligence begets purpose. And everything in the universe has a purpose. The sun, the moon, the stars, your kidneys, chlorophyll, everything has purpose, and everything is so specific. You cannot evolve if these traits that are required for that purpose don't exist in the world. And lastly, true love allows suffering. This is something that all atheists have trouble with. And this is mainly the reason why I became atheist. This question of suffering. Why do we suffer? If God is so good, why would he let us suffer? If God really cared, why would he let others hurt us? But if you really, really look at it, suffering is at the heart of love. When you get married, you get the line, in sickness and in health. If you look at the order, if you just pay attention to that order of the two words, sickness and in health, sickness is first, health is second. So imagine you meet your special someone and everything's going great and you really like him, she really likes you, but something bad happens during your relationship. If that person leaves you because of that thing, that had nothing to do with whatever you did, could you say that person actually loved you? I know this might sound weird, but I always remember this 1990s movie, The Mummy, at the end where the mummy lady and the mummy have this moment and he's about to die and he's like, wait, are you gonna leave me? You're gonna leave me? And she's like, peace out, bye. Did she really actually love him? No. Could you say that someone who left you at the most vulnerable moment in your life, or if you did that to them, could you say that you actually love them? True suffering is when we really know who loves us. And in terms of evil, God allowing evil, God is so good and he loves us so much that he lets us do what we want. We get to choose what to do. If God stopped all the evil just like that every single time, then it's not really love, it's dictatorship. It's that you would be forced to love him and to follow him. But the fact that he lets us do what we do to each other is love. It's like me with my children. Right now it's a little difficult because toddlers are toddlers and there's some things like if I don't stop them, they will hurt themselves. But at some point, if I truly love my children, I'm going to let them do what they do. And that is hard. But if you do truly love someone, you will let them do what they do, regardless of the consequences. In suffering, we find true love. Because most people don't want to, you see it every day. Most people don't want to be there when you're sad or angry or not your best. But the ones that stick around are the ones that really love you and want the best for you. It's that person that stays with you on your deathbed, or when you lose a child, or even something simple as a bad day, having a bad day. The person who's there for you is the one that loves you. The ones that leave when you're feeling a little down or going through something rough don't really love you. And so suffering and evil exist because God loves us and he allows it to exist. He didn't create it. He allows it to exist because he loves us so much. It's a very difficult thing to think about, but it makes complete sense. Because if he stopped everything, all the bad, then it would just be a dictatorship. There would not be free will. So I think these three things, had I known them at the time, I probably would never ever have become atheist. Because they're so logical and so scientific based and reason based and human. So human. Especially the thing with suffering and evil. I wish, no one wants any harm done to other people. No one wants, yes, there are people, but in general, we don't want to harm other people. But in our fallen nature and through our choices, our bad choices, and it is us who make the choices that we make, evil exists. And the adversary likes to play with that and use that against us, against our human nature. If you were atheist and are now Catholic or Christian, let me know in the comments below. Was there anything that you came upon through your journey becoming Christian or Catholic that really helped you making sense of Christianity and how it is logical and scientific based, and that just helped you come to Christ? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if there are any topics you would like me to cover, please comment down below, and I would love to help you out with that. My name is Alexis, and thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. God bless.